6 years to save a deposit. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heiser here and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from Domain, which discusses 6 years or first home buyers will take longer to save a deposit in Melbourne. Up to 6 years. Now before we go through this article, I'm going to plug my new YouTube channel, Heiser Says US, where I'm creating US-centered topics and covering the US news similar to like I do here in Australia. I'm aiming to release one video every night, because that's morning over there. So check it out and subscribe if you're interested. So let's jump back here, plug out of the way. So first home buyers in Melbourne will have to save for longer to get on the property ladder than they did this time last year, despite the impact of the coronavirus crisis on property prices, according to a new research. So it just doesn't get any easier, does it? Domain's first home buyer report, released Thursday, found those looking to buy in Melbourne for the first time will have to save for 6 years for a 20% deposit for a house and 4 years and 3 months for a unit. So 6 years. That's 2 months longer compared to the same time last year for houses and 1 month longer to get into a unit. And I don't know who'd be brave enough to get into a unit now. Who'd be brave enough to get into a unit. Not like that young gentleman who we looked at the other day who bought 2 to stick together with his mother. Remember that one? It's just nuts. The research assumes a couple on average earnings for a 20 to 34-year-old in their city can save 20% of their post-tax income every month, deposited it in a standard online savings account. It excluded transaction costs of buying the property. Oh, well, there you go. That's the problem. A lot of people exclude those transaction costs and you get smacked with a big surprise. One thing you can do the conveyancing yourself, guys. That's a saving of money. I remember I did that for my mother's property. And we had the real estate agent gave us his buddy to contact, the lawyer, and they gave me a fee. And I said, mate, why are you charging this much? You just get a student to do it. And he got all angry at me. And I said, well, you're doing it wrong. You don't need a lawyer to do paperwork, but apparently you do. Apparently you do. Would suck if you studied. Maybe you watched LA Law and you wanted to have, this high-flying legal career and you're stuck doing conveyancing. So entry-level homes are based on the 25th percentile, or the cheapest quarter of homes for sale. In Melbourne, this means a budget of $600,000 for a house, requiring a deposit of $120,000. An entry-level unit would be $424,000, requiring a deposit of $84,000. I mean, this is just crazy. This is just crazy. Bloody hell, guys. Entry prices in Sydney, $680,000. Entry prices in Melbourne, $600,000. In Brisbane, $400,000. That's meant to be an entry price? That's meant to be an entry price? Well, see, that was my trick. Buy a dilapidated house that you need to fix. That's the other way to do it, guys. But then you don't get the luxuries, none of this air conditioning. You got to repaint it, you got to re-put the footings on. I'd rather have a smaller mortgage. $680,000 in Sydney, guys. Look at these, how much people are saving in deposits. And the length of time. 6 years, 6 months, 6 years, 4 years. 3 years, 11 months, 3 years, 5 months, 4 years in Hobart, 3 years in Darwin, 5 years in Canberra. There you go, guys. We all have to move to Perth or Adelaide. Because honestly, a mortgage under $400,000 should be affordable. You should be able to handle those repayments. The report showed that buying in Melbourne's outer suburbs, often popular with first home buyers, would take a much shorter time to save a deposit for a home than those closer to the city. The shortest time needed to save a 20% deposit for a home was in the region including Melton and Bacchus Marsh in the outer west, where it would take first home buyers on average wage 4.5 years to save. The longest saving time was at Boroondara, which included the wealthier suburbs of Balwyn, Kew, Canterbury and Camberwell, where it would take almost 8 years for a first home buyer to save a deposit. Well, you need to move somewhere else, guys. You need to go cheap. Domain senior research analyst Nicola Powell said the data taken prior to Melbourne Stage 4 coronavirus lockdown showed prices had generally held up across the year to July 2020. Well, we'll have to see the impacts of the lockdowns. But I mean, look at that. Earlier today, they're making it easier for people to borrow money. They're doing whatever they can to just juice up property. I think they can't see a fall. They can't see a fall. How much of the country will they let crumble? Or how much future debt are we going to be burdened with? Or the real thing is, what are they going to do to eat that up? They're going to, big migration drive. Come over here, get educated, live in Australia, it's fantastic. Then these poor people come over here and there's no work. When my father immigrated over here, he came over because his cousin migrated over from Germany, went to Adelaide, got off the ship, went to Halden and got a job. There was work back then. There was a lot more work. They didn't have the unemployment that you have now. Moving forward, I think there will be improved affordability for first home buyers, Dr. Powell said. The July quarter has seen prices falling for houses by 0.8%, and units have fallen even further by 2.3%. So we're expecting the Melbourne market to weaken in the short term before it improves. While first home buyers could expect the time needed to save a deposit to drop in the coming months, incentives such as stamp duty discounts and other cash grants on offer could keep prices higher than expected, Dr. Powell said. We might see the time to save being pushed out again, she said. First home buyers are among those currently grappling with Melbourne Stage 4 restrictions, which have seen public auctions and inspections of homes banned. It has effectively stopped the property market in its tracks, although there have still been some people who are still waiting to buy. Barry Plant Melton's Ned Nikolic said first home buyers were still making offers, even when they hadn't seen the home in person. He was getting at least 5 inquiries a day about properties for sale from buyers, including those looking for their first home. And you can see here. Time to save a deposit for units, guys. 5 years. So 600 grand nearly. 585,000 for a unit in Sydney. With all the construction issues that have occurred. It's a lot quieter than before the pandemic, Mr. Nicola said, but we're still getting people making offers and buying off market. We had one person left a comment out, one of his friends got his first home, offered $50,000 above the asking price so it wouldn't go to auction. Can that be real? Would someone really do that? Is that the world that we're in right now? Is that how crazy this is in Australia? Across Melbourne, prices are expected to fall as a direct result of the pandemic opening up opportunities for first-home buyers. Independent economist Saul Eslake said he expected capital cities like Melbourne to see house prices fall by 10%. Expect distressed sales by those who can no longer afford to pay their mortgage could also offer opportunities for those looking to get into the market for the first time. I would expect to see that when the market opens up again properly, he said. A huge challenge for Victoria and Melbourne in particular would be the perception of buyers from other states. One of the biggest sources of demand for housing has been immigrants, not just from overseas but also interstate, he said. If people aren't as willing to move from other states, Melbourne will have a tougher time of it. I think people are going to leave Melbourne. Wonder how many of them will wind up in Queensland. Well, Westpac is predicting a 20% price growth in Brisbane properties. Here's the thing, guys. A viewer talking to me about it going, he's got his deposit saved. He doesn't want to jump in because he's worried he might lose it. But you got to think about this. I mean, if it's for your forever house, who cares if you lose the money? Are you really worried about it? Are you ever going to sell it? Or is it just going to be something that you hand down to your kids one day? Then maybe you don't need to worry about it. Is that just the price you pay for the stability? And I mean, it's money. Money's just the tool. It can come and go like the breeze. That's just how life is sometimes. You don't want to get too attached. But it's just such a crazy situation now because who would have predicted a year or two ago that we would have had mortgage holidays that just would have been extended forever and ever and ever? Who would have predicted, or probably a lot of people would have predicted, that they would have, now started changing the rules to make it easier for people to borrow and all these things. And This is the thing. We're not in a free market. We're in a market that has a lot of intervention. Even our interest rate is completely artificial, guys, the cash rate. Mortgage broker and director of 4040 Finance, Will Uncles, who deals with many Melbourne-based first-home buyers, said he had been particularly quiet during the lockdown. Generally, on a Monday, I get about 15 to 20 phone calls from either existing clients or new ones. I've had between 0 and 3 calls over the past 3 Mondays. But he was feeling confident about the opportunities for first-home buyers. With far fewer investors and foreign buyers in the market, the good news for first-home buyers was less competition. The market has fallen away a little bit. Investors are not around, so first-home buyers have a cleaner run at it, he said. Mr. Uncles was expecting the market to completely change in November after Melbourne's restrictions were lifted. Debit has never, ever been cheaper in Australia, he said. Because prices have dropped off, there's low competition at the lowest interest rate ever. What better time to buy your first house? What do you think, guys? More people just jumping on? But I mean, there's no political will at all to allow it to correct, to allow the market the freedom that it needs, maybe to get to a more reasonable purchasing price relative to wages. What else can they do? Let me know your thoughts and opinions, guys. What do you think will happen to housing? What do you think the government will do to keep kicking that can? It's Australia, guys. Yeah, she'll be right. As always, thanks for watching, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or KuCoin. You can buy merch from Heiser Says, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. You can also join and subscribe to Heiser Says US to help support the channel there. Take care, guys. I'll see you next time.